I Can Talk with Ting is a series I personally chair and moderate through, again, inviting distinguished speakers each time on a specific theme, typically related to a career sector or a specific function or around another career theme. So now I would like to introduce our first speaker. But before that, I would just to say that today our topic is on IT career. So IT is a line profession that has seen rising demand in the past decade, and that has been further accelerated by the COVID-19 because of the surge of use in IT, whether in remote working or in global knowledge, sharing knowledge. And of course, there were a lot of different areas in IT, whether it's technology vendors or whether there are companies that provide e-commerce platform in order to enable those companies to operate. But what else is there in the IT field that contributing to our work and life? And what prospects are there for you if you're looking to expand your career in the IT profession? So today I would like to explore this in detail along this line of IT career that can be applied globally, but also very broadly. And that's why I'm so pleased that today we have two distinguished speakers, Wen Xiao and Yue Wang. They're both very highly accomplished professionals. And we will hear their journeys and their interesting background and how they have made it to what they have today. So the first speaker is Wen Xiao. So in Chinese, this is Xiao Wen. And I've known Wen since 2006. And when I worked on a strategy consulting project with BT, British Telecom, in my previous consulting business. And Wen was the CTO of wholesale management services in BT, and that was 1/3 of BT business. And then he became COO of BT China. I think at that time he was the most senior Chinese person from mainland in BT at the time. And a few years later, I got to know that he actually took a role in AstraZeneca to head the whole IT infrastructure and responsible for moving AstraZeneca to Cambridge. Obviously, that went really well. And as a result, Cambridge house prices went up because AstraZeneca moved in. And then I heard another surprise move from him, that he went to Prudential to take up the role of CDO, Chief Data Officer, and the CIO. So today, I thought it would be really great to ask him how he managed to reinvent himself. My first question really to you is, I mentioned that this IT career, is so broad. So how do you define it?
Okay. So first, it's my pleasure and honor to speak to this audience. I think this when we start this conversation, we started about a couple of weeks ago when we starting to put this forum together. And what is the definition of IT career? Now, you mentioned that on your slide, I spent 20 years in the industry. Actually, I started my career in 1995 as a software engineer for AT&T Biolabs. Now, so for a lot of people, either they probably haven't even born yet in 95 or probably too young to remember what it was like. So 95 was a year desktop PC finally become a common for everybody's is a common tool that everybody can use with the launch of Windows 95 and desktop. We is very rarely a household has a desktop. There is no laptop. There's no mobile phones, and we did have internet in the U.S. only in the U.S. And I remember we have to use dial-up. The speed is 20.8K per second. In comparison, that I have a home broadband 80 megs, which is I do the calculation is 3,000 times slower than what we do today. You can never do what we're doing today with video conferencing. Now, at the time in the corporate America, well, in the corporate in the US, and IT career is considered a specialist. Right? You have hardware. You have very few companies had programming languages. Now, at that time, IT is a specialist, and the corporate IT department, there was no such thing as a CIO, Chief Information. There's nobody carried the C title, right? Chief Information Officer, Chief Technology Officer, none of that. The IT department's main job is to install PCs and maintain the PCs, the hardware, and also install software. Now, but if we fast forward 26 years later, you can hardly think of an industry that has now been transformed by the information technology. Right? In 95, there was no Amazon, there was no Google, the pre-Google, pre-Amazon. But today, Amazon is the largest retailer. When we started, I studied Amazon when I was in business school in 1999. And Amazon was basically an online channel for books, selling books and books only. But now it's the largest retailer in the world and probably the largest delivery company in the world. And they also have their large IT infrastructure company in the world with AWS, which is a cloud infrastructure. And also they have their own, they create their own movies and TV series and win awards. So even within the company, you can hardly think of any business function has now been transformed by IT. So when we discussed this, I made a point that in old days, IT is specialist, but today, IT is the business. We are the business. What does that mean? If you're a technologist thinking about a career in IT, first, you have to take out the mindset that we are a supporting function. We are the business leaders. We are defining how the business is going to run in the future. I think later I can share you my experience, how I was been doing that. And the second is the expectation for a quote unquote IT professional is much higher. In the old days, you just had to be very good at certain things like programming, right? Doing coding, network, hardware. But today, you have to be, if you're building an app, mobile apps, you have to be a consumer behavior specialist. You understand what is the customer journeys like and what is the best way to personalize the app experience to individual customers. You need to be an AI specialist because you need to add, using data, analyzing data, and create that personalized journey. You need to be, people understand how to run the operations. If you're building a system like CRM or any enterprise ERM system, enterprise systems, you need to understand how the business is run. So to me, I think people join this panel, and if you take away one message is don't think about IT career as just a technologist. Think yourself as the future leader of the business, because we will be the ones that redefine the business, how business is run tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. When I totally agree with you that IT is the business. Everything is IT now. We can't really work or live without IT. So I guess what I was, as I mentioned just now, you made career moves and you made those choices that rarely anyone else would really, dare to think of, because it's totally different industry. And you managed to do really well each time. And so why did you make those choices and how?
Yeah, first, I can hardly say I'm a successful. I just, one hand, I'm following my passion. And the second is I'm probably just lucky. But I think it's more, I think it is relevant to the audience here is to share why I make those career choices. So as I mentioned earlier, I joined, I was born in China, but I went to universities in the US. I was 93. And 93 or 95 is a great time if you're a software engineer, because that's a very highly thought after career for people, for professional, for people who, every company is trying to understand what this IT is and what they can do for a business. And so I was, I got a job at AT&T Bell Labs even before I graduated. in the 1 year before I graduated. Now, people probably AT&T Bell Labs probably don't mean much for people on this call, but at the time, AT&T was the largest company in the US and probably is in the world, the largest company. And Bell Labs was the most respected private research institute in the world. And even until today, everything we use in the telecommunications, right? Doesn't matter, it's a phone, the dial tone, the internet, the broadband, was all actually invented based on the technology by Bell Labs. And I was a very good developer. I was, I'm not just saying that because I thought I was good. When I went to the business school at MIT, I was teaching Java programming languages for all the incoming students, first-year students, for 2 years, right? And everybody walked away from the business school with a huge debt. I spent nothing. They also even gave me a stipend for the work I did. Now, I was actually having a great time because I was building software for Japanese customers, for the largest telco company in Japan, NTT. And for a 20-year-old, that was a great job. Right? I was working the most respected company, well paid, and also I go to Japan, fly in business class to Japan 3 times a year. For a 20-year-old, you couldn't, get better than that. But also at the time, I was also frustrated because with the technology, I was on the forefront, the leading edge of the technology, and I see all the things developing, and some of the business problems that have been troubling my client. I think that there's an easy solution, right? With technology, they can be easily solved. But what puzzled me was not my client or my management team see that. Initially, I thought I was stupid because I was young. I just started a career. I came from another country. Maybe it's something I didn't understand. But I tried actually take a couple of initiatives, and it was quite successful. That may make me realize something, as I could actually play a bigger role and make a bigger difference in the business. I wasn't satisfied of just being a technologist. I want to make a difference in the business. But of course, I was not in the position to do so. I was too junior. And also I didn't have enough business knowledge, right? How to do the marketing, finance, operations. I don't know any of that. I didn't know any of that. So I decided to go to business school. It was in 1999. So I applied for the top 10 business schools in the US, rejected by 8 of them, and accepted by 2. So in the end, I choose to go to MIT. And I spent 3 years there. I got 2 master's degrees. And it was at MIT I met my mentor, who was just became the CIO of the 4th largest telco company in US. And after graduation, I joined him. And I was, from 1 year, I was promoted from a business analyst to a director. It's probably the fastest in that company. But 2 years later, my mentor got a job. He became the group chief information officer for BT. And he brought me to UK. And so I spent 6 years in the UK in BT with BT. In 2010, BT launched a major investment program in China. We try to expand our international business in China. So I was sent to lead that initiative in China. I was a COO, and also for about a year, I was the deputy CEO as well, so interim CEO as well. Now, after 2 years, I came back to BT in London, headquarters. But BT has changed its strategy. So instead of growing our international ambition, global ambition, we actually want to more focus domestically in the UK with the launch of BT TV, BT Sport, and also the acquisition of EE, become the biggest mobile company. So it's a change of company strategy. And I have to say that I was really missing my international experience. Working with the Japanese customers, running a business in China. So in 2014, I was approached by AstraZeneca, because AstraZeneca is very committed to expand their international business, especially in Asia. And also, we got a new CIO at the time, David Smoke. He is trying to take a major transformation journey to migrate all our legacy IT infrastructure to the cloud. He called the cloud first strategy. And so I joined AstraZeneca to run the IT infrastructure and operations in APAC, which include China, Japan, Australia, Malaysia, Latin America, as well as Middle East and Africa. It was the most fun job I had at the time because I spent half my time every year on the airplane. And I traveled to China, Japan, Australia, Kuala Lumpur, Puerto Rico, US, and Dubai. So I was on the I was on the plane all the time. Really fulfill my my love for international business. And then in that job, I was quite lucky with a good team. We shut down over 20 data centers in all those countries and moved everything to the cloud. And at the same time, we increased the customer satisfaction from 60-some% to over 90%. So very, very successful. And I'm very pleased what my team has done. And I remember in 2016, Chinese New Year, I was having a Chinese New Year meal with my dinner with my mentor. The same guy who recruited me from MIT and also brought me to BT. He told me that he just got a new role as a group chief digital officer at Prudential. And he said, "Do you want to join me?" And it was a tough choice because I had a very good team. I had make good progress, and AstraZeneca was a very up. Companies are going up, and just give you a sense, that was probably a bad choice for me to leave because when I left, the stock price was about 50 quid, and now it's probably I stopped checking, but 80, 90 quid. Right? If I had stayed, I probably can retire comfortably now. And also, Prudential is an insurance company. So when you think about the pecking order of technology advancement, you have the IT, so the startups, the telco, pharmaceutical is probably low, and insurance is probably at the bottom. Nobody think about insurance company as an innovative company. But what my mentor, now my boss, told me is his vision, this is not just another job. His vision is to transform the industry, to modernize the insurance industry. And that was something that, at the time he told me is you do it probably once in your lifetime. That's the opportunity of a lifetime, not just to have another job, but have the opportunity to transform and redefine a company and even the industry. So that was very encouraging. I took a leap of faith. That's why I left AstraZeneca and joined Prudential. And so far, 5 years, almost 5 years now, I was quite pleased with the decision I made. Other than the stock price, what I missed on the stock boom in AstraZeneca. But we actually done that. So for example, not only I got a chance to, as a chief innovation officer, I work with startup companies, working with some of the most technology, the best technology companies in the world, right? From mostly startups, very innovative in China, in US, in Israel. And also I got a chance to practice my skills on multiple other business disciplines. For example, last year, I ran the largest digital marketing campaign in Asia. Well, we launched a new app we call Pulse by Prudential. And I ran the campaign to acquire 20 million users in a matter of 18 months. And with a cost of less than $1 per user. So that was very, very successful. We made a lot of highlight news. But if I stayed in other companies, I probably wouldn't get a chance to do these kind of things. But being a digital person in Prudential, I got a chance to try all of that. And I also is great for the I love international travel. So I think the 2019 was the last year before everybody can travel. I made actually 66 trips internationally, 66. So basically sometimes 2 countries a week. I also spent 3 months including 3 months in Jakarta, Indonesia, which was it's very for people who love the international business. I think that's what the questions you asked. You ask in your email. I think it's great because you got a great chance to experience different culture, but more importantly, you got a chance to you don't have to be very innovative in those countries because they're so poor in terms of infrastructure. But what you can do, what I did, actually could make a huge difference in the business there, and that is very satisfying for me. So I hope they give you a sense of some of the choice I made and why I made that. But in the end of the day, I think I started as a developer, but I think it was my passion to solve problems, to solve business problems, and a desire to make a difference that drove me on this career path as I'm here today.
I have to say that's amazing that you managed to carve a position in a financial institution, an insurance company, as a IT professional, as a tech person, and each time you make that move, you always can make a difference, and that's, I guess, what, as you say, makes it satisfactory. So now I would like to move on to Yue. So I noticed that previously we did not have doctor. So I added specifically because I have a huge respect for people who has a PhD degree, doctor. So Yue is amazing in that she has worked in various different countries, but also she has multiple roles in technology, but also, as you see, she sits at University Advisory Group, and also she won awards. I actually met Yue a few years ago at a technology event, I think by the GSM in London. Then I was quite impressed that because she's a Chinese lady and and in a Korean organization and doing very well. Of course, later then I got to know her again from UK Chinese Women Connect, which I helped to set up during the pandemic last year. And then through our voluntary roles, I got to know Yue even more. And I was even more impressed with the fact that she heads the technology part of UKCWC, but also she still has a family, son, and always calm and always helpful. So I'm very thankful that Yue comes to join us today to share her experience.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tina. It's my pleasure to be here.
So my first question for you, Yue, is that, what made you choose your career in your career? How did you do that?
Right. I guess ever since I was a child, I liked the math and the engineering stuff. It's just something really natural to me. It was also greatly encouraged by my parents, which was not unusual in China because STEM subjects were and still are very popular in China. So it wasn't the difficult choice at the beginning. So I did, as you mentioned, I did my PhD in Canada. That was also the first time I lived and studied abroad. Then I got the opportunity in the US. I worked at Philips at the outskirts of New York. I had planned to stay in the US, got my interview and job offer sorted and everything, but then I found out that, I just couldn't get a working visa in the US. So I found a job in the UK. I started my first job as a research engineer, climbed the career ladders in a few companies, senior principal in the different technical roles. And then more recently, I took a technology management role. So works as a senior technology manager, leading a team working on the use of AI for 5G networks and beyond. So I unlike when, my focus has always been in telecom for all these years. I guess the reason I'm actually able to stay in this industry for long enough and that I'm still here is because I really enjoyed working in this industry, and I do relate to Wen's comment earlier about the passion. I think that's something really important. So you have the passion to actually enjoy working and continue makes you move. And so I guess one thing I like about working in this industry is that you get to work with some really smart people, the expert around this field to bounce off your ideas and get the great insights about some really complicated technical stuff. And the person who you talk with, with on your daily work could well be someone who has a great deal of respect in the industry, and you get so much inspirations from them. I think things like this makes you feel really proud working in this industry, and to me, it's a big plus for a working environment to be in. Now, as you progress in your career, what I also like about is that, working in this industry actually means you have the opportunity to take part shaping it, and especially the new technologies and making an impact. So that, again, when just talked about his experience, how he saw the business, or how he thought he could shape the business and the technology, how he briefly stepped out to actually influence the other people. I can relate quite a lot to that. So in my own experience, I started looking into AI for network operation and management like 3 to 5 years ago. Now everyone is talking about network AI, right? There are lots of activities ongoing, but 5 years ago you get lots of questions and doubts about the work you do. Yeah, so I need to do a lot of groundwork, including using the influence externally and to also hire management in order to make it happen. I was also one of the people who initiated the SE industry standard specific group on network AI, which today is an organization with about 50 industry members, all the big vendors and operators around the world. So I guess experience like this is kind of really rewarding. So it's like you grow a tree, from planting a seed and then gradually develop and grow it. That sort of satisfaction, seeing that your idea grow to a commonly accepted technology these days. So from that process, I think you are making an impact, which would seem to be something I would never be able to do when I first actually started working in this industry. I guess great things like this, they don't happen on day one of your work, and they don't actually happen very often. It takes time, courage, resilience, and sometimes a bit of luck to actually for the opportunity to present itself. So I think in that sense, maybe I didn't intentionally actually choose to work in this industry or this specific career path, but rather it is more like, I know what I enjoy, I trusted my gut feeling and followed it through.
Well, I think you also mentioned making an impact and pick it up that just like when mentioned, make a difference. I think that's probably what drives us, every one of us, if we want to, excel in our career, to have that passion, but also to to see the impact we, through our personal endeavors, create. That's really important. And I like your analogy of the career is like a tree. You plant it and you have to have this husbandry, and then that you can get to the fruit. So in your career over the last years, did you have any challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Well, a lot of challenges. I think the common challenges that I encountered are probably general for someone who happens to be a woman and also from a different cultural background. So I'm a Chinese working in a UK company headquartered in Korea. It is sometimes very interesting to notice the obvious culture difference, when you talk to the different colleagues at different locations of the world. Now, in terms of how to overcome it, I think the culture context is actually very important. And so there are many books talking about the series of how to deal with it, with a different culture, which could be useful. I think when it comes to the practical day-to-day jobs, having some awareness and empathy is very important. So this is where, working in the different places and the different cultures actually give you that advantage, because you have more awareness from the different perspectives of the cultures. Now, the other challenge is gender stereotype. I mean, to be fair, most of my colleagues are very supportive, very professional, to extend that for a long time, I didn't think I have problem fitting in. But there is always a but. The sad fact is, even though when you were young and brave, you decided to enter this field with full passion at the first place, gender bias does creep in and become something you had to come through, in a male-dominated industry. But again, I think actually it is common to everyone at some stage of his or her career, and that they will encounter the feeling of kind of being rejected, like your idea didn't get accepted, being misunderstood, or didn't get the promotion you think you are ready for. Especially for women, I think they like to take this a bit more personally and more, emotionally. But it is actually natural for, as one or the only few women in your workplace, you might feel you could use more support sometimes. But again, I think try not to think it as, they are doing this just because I'm a woman, or oh gosh, this is not for me, I don't fit in here at all, because chances are you will. You probably just need to give it a bit more time. Then I think another thing that is important, that is also related to the comment about culture, is to think about things from a different perspective, from another gender's perspective, another culture's perspective, or basically another individual person's perspective. When you are making a judgment, looking to reach agreement, negotiating a project, try to understand things from that different angle, and I think that actually goes a long way in your career, regardless which gender or cultural background you actually come from.
Yes, and I think I agree with you, especially on the putting yourself into others' perspective. I think because we, as the reason ICANN is here is also because most of us are having international career. Having international career means we are not actually working or living in the country we are born. So we are forced to adapt to the culture where we live. And then in that respect, as a result, we can be more successful. That's why a lot of people say immigrants are more successful than the native people, because they have to try harder to do that. So thank you very much. Yes, and now I would like to bring Wen back, and we have some questions, couple of common questions I would like to ask. Perhaps I would have Wen to start with. So both of you have, as you have mentioned, have career in more than 2 countries, in 3 countries at least. So how did you make those choices? I mean, was that just naturally happened, and or it took you a lot of effort to make that decision? So for what I'm asking is for you to share your experience with the audience. If they are thinking to go to pursue a career in another foreign country, what should they consider before making that decision? Because it's a big decision.
It's a big decision. And I thought about this. Well, of course, my views are biased because I've done it 4 times, and actually I'm in the process maybe doing the 5th time and moving to Hong Kong. I think let's start with the pros and the cons, right? First, it's fun, right? You got a chance to live in different countries, making different friends, eating different food and making different friends. So it's a fun thing, at least for me. And the second, I think you developed a broader perspective. I think last time I presented to in your event, that was even before it called ICANN. It's I think it was 2009. I think 2009, 2010. And I deal, as I mentioned earlier, I deal with a lot of startup companies in China, in US, in Israel. And if you're interested in working in the US still is the most technically advanced country. A lot of innovations, new technology, new business model. But in China is also a leader in innovation, but not in terms of technology, but in terms of how to apply the technology. I was in another event last year, 2 years ago, was by a renowned Chinese technologist. And he said, AI, I think you mentioned about AI. AI in China means age of implementation, right? It's not about how sophisticated technology we use. It's how do you use the technology to consumerize it and to make an impact to the mass. And give you an example. There was a BBC or sorry a CNN documentary a few years ago. It says both China and the US are fastly becoming a cashless society, right? If you think about how US did it, they start with a credit card. In the US, everybody has multiple credit cards, and then they also have the Apple Pay. You touch your phone, and then you got to make a payment. It's a great technology, but it's actually very expensive, especially for merchants. Because you have to buy the specialized terminal, we call the POS, point of sale devices, to accept that card. And you have to maintain, pay money to retain it. That's why I also charge a high fee. It will never work in China because China has tens of millions of small merchants, people selling fruit on the street. They cannot afford a POS. And if they can't afford one, how do you connect it on the street? So China took a very different approach using the QR code. The two dominant payment providers, Alipay and Tencent Pay. All you had to do, they gave everybody a personalized QR code. And make a payment is as easy. You open up your camera, you scan the QR code, and you make the payment.
What does that? Sorry, well, I'll just say. So, what did that contribute to your choice and for people to consider when they move their career?
I think it's a different perspective, business perspective. When you work in different countries, only you work in there, you actually realize what are the things you can do with the technology. Right? That's my point. So that's just an example. And I think the third one is when you spend so many times in working in different countries, you actually become more valuable for potential employers because everybody, business big and small, they have the ambition to grow international, right? So if you have that experience, especially you have successful experience in those countries, it make you more valuable. So that's the 3 pros, but there's also 3 cons, disadvantages. The first is to the family. When I was young and single, I could move to another country with a drop of a hat. But now with the family, with the kids, it's very challenging. You like Hong Kong, but both my daughters went to the top London schools. It's hardly to find a school match the same quality as one in London. So family is a big one. And the second one is at risk. Just like you're actually adding your, giving you more marketable for your career, but also you take a risk. Because when you move to a different country, especially if you're from a company headquartered in UK, when you move to a different country, it's almost like you have to step down on your career. Because in the country, when I was moved to China, I was actually, my boss is one level below me in the corporate job family. Right? So, and when you step away from the headquarters, you actually, taking a career risk. So if the company, like I mentioned earlier, BT changed the strategy. It's no longer interested in international. They focus on domestic. In that case, for 2 years, I actually take a step back on my career. And I think the third one is the lifestyle. A lot of people are very interested in working in China. But I just give you one example. I used to work with Huawei a lot when I was in BT. And when I visited the Huawei office, all the employees have a sleeping bag under their desk because they're working very long hours. And I'll give you another example, anecdote. I think we're probably run out of time, but I was actually recruited by the 23rd richest man in China. He started his company, and from the ground up, and eventually he actually bought House of Fraser in UK, one of the high street brand, and even also bought Hamleys, which is the largest toy stores in the world. And he wanted me to be, he flew me to China with his private jet, double my salary and the global CIO at a very, very attractive offer. It was in 2015 actually. But when I walked so in my last day, I spent 3 days in there talking to everybody in his company. But in my last day in his office, I arrived a little bit earlier. So I had to stay in one of his secretary offices. He had 5 secretary offices, not secretary offices. And in the middle of the table, there is a big sign that says, pardon my language, even the chairman's fart is an order. Even the chairman's fart is an order. So that actually was the moment I decided this is not the company I want to work for, because that says a lot about his management style and the culture of the company. And he's not alone, by the way. If you look at even some of the most respected tech companies in China, Alibaba, ByteDance, TikTok, they also openly promote this 996 work style. From 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. So is that worth the effort for you to move? You probably double your salary. You probably become a millionaire or even billionaire if you stay there long enough. But is that worth your life to do that? So I think the three is a fun. It's help you develop different business perspective. It help you become more valuable. But it's also a lot of hassle on your family. And also it could take a career risk if you took another assignment in another country. And also you have to balance out the different work style and the lifestyle of working in countries like China.
Thank you, Wen. That is really very helpful to understand the pros and cons. Like any choice we make in life is like a trade-off. It's never a perfect situation. It's at the end of the day, it's really what suits you and your family the best. But it's really important, as you say, you have to know, whether this is really you are in just for the money, or you want to actually a longer term healthy work-life balance. So now we come to Yue for this.
So I can relate a lot from what Wen just mentioned. To me, I think if you want to make a good choice about where to work, think about what you want. Ask yourself: is it the good life? Is it money, career success, or health, or happy family? You might want to say, all of the above, which is fine and very reasonable, but then you need to think about which ones are the priorities. And I have to say, I'm quite jealous of Wen because he has a freedom to travel all around and to choose the career, he find where it is fun to do the technology. To me, I think well, from my perspective, I think I'm probably more restricted because I have a family. So when I think about working in another place, I have to think about how do I bring my family along. I guess one thing to add on top of what Wen just mentioned is that the world is getting much smaller nowadays. So in a way, it doesn't matter that much, where you're actually located. Technology is fast-moving industry. So regardless if you're working in the UK or the US or in China, if you want to stay at the forefront of the industry, you have to go a considerable amount of effort. If you want to have a contribution or grade in a standard meeting, for example, there won't be anyone who would just say, cut her some slack. She's from the UK. That wouldn't happen. Right, so consider the industry as a whole. When you want to make the influence, your skills and reputation is kind of judged and evaluated worldwide. No matter where you work. But of course, working in a different location, maybe the compensation is different, working style is different. That is down to personal choice. And so in my role, I work with different people in the US, in Korea, in China. Where everyone is physically doesn't seem to be that important nowadays.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think now with the COVID-19 and the change of style working, international career probably becoming more reachable for most of us, that you can actually start working for a foreign company without actually physically moving. But of course, moving, the whole experience of working in another country is very valuable. And also for your children, actually, I think kids actually greatly benefit from changing of culture and changing environment. They pick up language, local culture very quickly as well. So I'm going to notice time. I'm going to stop monopolizing your time and open now to the floor. So I know that we have already questions coming through, and I know that before this, one of our members, Chen Xia, she has already sent to me privately questions that she would like to ask. So Xia, would you mute yourself and ask your questions now?
Yeah, thanks, Ting, and fascinating to listen to the stories from our.
Say who you are as well.
Yes. Well, first of all, really thank you for our guest for sharing your really fascinating experience working in different countries. My name's Xia. I'm an enterprise architect working at Deloitte at the moment. I originally come from China, studied in Singapore and UK, and have been here for nearly 10 years. And I'm currently in a technology role, although it's not very highly technical, but I have heard from many colleagues who are in technical roles with this question, which I want to ask our guests. That is, if somebody is in a technical role and having to make a decision of whether to come to a managerial role as their career progression, what are the key areas that these type of colleagues should be considering before making that decision? Because I know you have made so many amazing decisions in your career which led to the success that you currently have. What are your advice for people like them? Thank you.
So Yue, do you want to go ahead first, lady first?
Okay, thanks, Wen. I think if you talk about the difference between being an individual contributor and a manager, I think a manager has more responsibilities to look after a team. So if you are an individual contributor, you have been focused on doing your best to contribute individually. But as a manager, you also need to bring everyone together to do the best. Then you also need to have the vision, at least for your team. This is where you want to lead your team to. So take the strategic decision, including the technical and non-technical directions, and then how to allocate resources, how to get the new resources, how to develop their skills, because this is related to how you want your team to become, in the next, let's say, 3 to 4, 5 years time. And then I guess being a manager also means you need to have really good influence, internally and externally, because you need to get others to work to you and to do what you want them to do. So if you could prepare yourself to be someone, who is a highly respected expert, for example, in the industry, that could help you to build that influence. I guess another slightly different perspective to add here is a lot of people think that technical and management roles are actually two opposite paths. They are probably not. I mean, if you want to have a successful career, regardless if you are in a technical or management role, you will need to you will need to have the resilience. You need to communicate well with your colleagues, get your message across. Sometimes you need to negotiate internally and externally. These are common skills you need to build every day on doing your job, regardless, if you are as an individual contributor or as a manager. So even if you don't choose the management rules, those are still the skills that will help you to progress, even if you are in a technical role. So I think perhaps not to focus too much on the choice itself, but just keep developing yourself. The skills won't get wasted.
Yeah, just to add that, I think I want to answer that question a little bit differently. Is why do you want to make that transition from technologist to manager? What is driving you to make that change? Now, I think you had mentioned something about, you want to be a career progression, but, somebody say, okay, because I want more job security. Now, I can tell you, if that's the case, if I have to make a choice, if I had to, I wouldn't say fire, but let go somebody who is a manager or project manager or generalist, or a highly specialized technologist in the company, you have to make a choice. I guarantee you, I would choose a specialist, technology specialist, very good technology specialist, than a general manager at any time. Why? Because it's way more important for the company if you're a very good technologist. We rely on the technology to run. Then manager, I can always hire. I can always hire externally, and it's a skill I can also develop gradually. If people in the house will even hire somebody from Deloitte to run that. So I think if it's a concern about, I wouldn't say from technology to a manager is a career progression, because right now we think about two tracks, right? Managerial track, of course, they can lead you all the way up to CEOs, but technologists, you could actually make the next startup company, the next Google, next Amazon, next Netflix. And if you want to apply for a job to working with Google, you probably got a higher paid, easier if you're a developer, right? Or a top-notch network engineer, or specialist IT security specialist. You can easier find a job at a higher paid job than if you are manager or project manager. That's the thing. I don't why I'm saying that with which is a little bit hypocrite, because I made that transition. I think I made that transition because I want to make a big difference. I want to make a bigger difference than I was as a technologist, and moving to the manager rank did give me the opportunity to make that change. I never regret that, making that change. But meanwhile, I think the future talent, if you think about career progression, I would call it a T. We call the T-type talent. Letter T. On the one hand, you are deep specialized in certain area. So in your case, it could be technology, it could be digital or user experience. But meanwhile, you develop other skill, experience or knowledge in other business functions, finance, marketing, operations, so on and so forth. So those will be the talent that will be highly thought after. Doesn't matter you're a startup or you're a corporate. So I don't think, in the old days, again, go back to my beginning statement, technology was considered a supporting function. IT was considered a supporting function. Nowadays, we are the business leader. We are the ones driving the business. So I think there's more opportunities actually in both sides. But I think if you're rooted in technology, it gives you more edge over the people actually always in the managerial role.
That's great. Thank you. I'm just looking at all the questions. We've got quite a lot of questions come in. Someone, he said, this is from 10, and he said, for someone who's seeking to transition into tech with an MBA, what is the good starting point? The context is that he's looking to get into RPA, robotics process automation, and his background is in law, currently doing MBA at Imperial and seeking to transition to the tech industry. So I guess this is for when, because the MBA transition.
Yeah, I think MBA is a very good stepstone, because when you do it, doesn't matter what was your career before, but once you become an MBA, you have another opportunity to change your career path. But I just want to build on that. I think from law, got an MBA, go to RPA. It sounds a little bit. I wouldn't recommend that, because RPA first is, to be honest, is old technology, robotic process automation, right? So you basically code to make things that normally done by human but done by computer. It is being used in a lot of companies, but I don't think that's a leading edge. If you come from, you study in the Imperial, which is the best computer department in UK. Somebody told me even better than Cambridge, which Tim may disagree. But focus on things on AI, right? Doesn't matter it's a network AI you was talking about or applied AI I was talking about earlier. But looking at the AI, RPA is a piece of technology, and there are a lot of people can do that. People in India, you want to focus on things that what's unique about the UK, which is our intellectual property, AI, advanced research, like what the AstraZeneca is doing with Oxford. So focus on those areas. Stay in the front and leading edge of technology. Don't just go to a piece of technology that's just because there's more demand or easy to do. That's my advice.
Thank you for that. So now we've got Ling Yue. She asked 2 questions. So I think one of them is related to the CDO of UN, but another one is about cultural difference. So her question is, hi Wen, the CDO is a relatively new term and organization position. In the last 5 years, how's your experience as a CDO? How did you build your team, gain more impact, interact with COO, CFO, CIO? Which are the more traditional organization roles?
Okay, so I think I didn't become CDO for 5 years, only about from last year. I think CDO is another area which is overlooked before, but now gaining increasingly more visibility and importance within the organization. So data has always been considered a byproduct of systems, right? So you had a CIO to build systems, but if you look at, as I mentioned earlier, AI, what is the new future technology of the future? It's AI, but AI cannot run without data. So now after becoming a CDO, I made a presentation to a board, and I got another presentation. So basically, the board wants to know what we're doing with the data every quarter or every half year. So you got more visibility. Another thing to answer the previous question is, if you do want to choose a tech area, the leading edge technology, that's one, and the second, working on a company or a function that's positioning you for the future. I think the CDO is one of them. Now, another important thing about CDO is it's not just to support the individual function. It's actually supporting all the functions, right? Doesn't matter COO, CFO, CIO, Chief Marketing Officer, they all want the data. So you got a chance to interact and support and working with all the business functions. So I think that's something interesting, but also a CDO is not just a technology function. It increases a lot. So for example, what do you use the data for, right? If it's to driving more customer engagement, making company efficiency. So understanding the exam question, what do you need data for, greatly influence what do you do, how you prioritize your work. So I think that, again, CDO is not a technology role, but a more of a business role. And it's a good area to get yourself into.
Thanks, Wen. That's really good to know. So now the next question will be for Yue, because I think it's more also relevant as well. So this is from Jen, Gao Juan. So she says that thank you both for sharing your inspirational stories. I see that your passion to the technology is the key to make your career successful. Do you have any advice on the things, traps, and lessons you consider we should avoid in the career progression? Very good question.
Yeah, very good question. Makes me think. Well, on top of my head, I think one thing that is probably again related, to the nature of a person from another cultural background, and also being a woman, it does sometimes we lack of confidence to speak up in, for example, group meetings. And I still remember the feedback my first manager gave me, that you make good contributions in one-to-one meetings, but when it comes to group meetings, I like to sit at the corner, keep quiet, because I'm just so afraid to speak up. So I think this is probably something I would avoid doing, if I had the chance to start over my career again. It's really to just, if you have an opinion, if you have an idea, just feel free to contribute it. I think a lot of us want to make it perfect before you actually say it out loud, but it doesn't need to be that way.
Okay, that is very helpful. I think the tips we can all remember from today. And thank you again to our speakers today, to Wen Xiao and to Yue Wang, who came to share really interesting and very helpful stories for us